구원해준 나의 천사 나의 세상 난 이상 새 고향이 널 만나러.
There's my voiceover in the background, so feel free to mute if you had preferred to watch silently. Wayan sat curled in the far corner of a quiet cafe, her elbows resting near a worn paper bag. A soft jazz tune floated in the background, and her coffee steamed gently beside her, untouched, the scent of cinnamon and roasted beans curling in the air. Her eyes stayed on the page until something disrupted the rhythm. Footsteps, sharp, hurried, they echoed louder than the music, growing closer. She looked up, and in a flash of moment, a stranger darted into space, breathless, wild-eyed Jungkook. Jungkook did not stop at the table. He ran straight toward her and slipped behind the curtain next to her table. Her heart stumbled. She stared, blinking, unsure if she had imagined it. The curtain shifted. From behind the fabric, a face appeared. His eyes swept the cafe like he was on the run. Then they landed on her. Don't look at me, he whispered, eyes sincere, before disappearing behind the curtain again. She blinked once more, confused and curious. Then, as if this strange scene wasn't odd enough, a little boy stormed into the cafe. His small hands gripped a neon water gun. It wasn't just water, the liquid shimmered, bright and stained with color. The child's gaze moved across the room until it settled on her. He stepped closer, raising an invisible eyebrow. Did you see my young here? He asked, his voice serious for someone wearing cotton shoes and carrying blue emma. Ryan tried not to laugh. She shook her head, lips twitching with amusement. No, she replied gently. The boy studied her for a bit longer, then nodded with purpose. Call me if he's here, okay? She nodded again, barely holding back a smile. Once he disappeared, the curtain beside her shifted again. Slowly, Jungkook emerged, breathing rushing out of his chest like he had held it too long. Thank you so much, he said, standing tall and grateful. That's okay, Wayan murmured, eyes smiling now. He brushed his hand across the front of his crisp white shirt, inspecting it for damage. He almost ruined my shirt, he said under his breath. Just as he began to breathe easier, the boy's voice rang out again. Hyung, his shoulder tensed, his eyes widened. Busted, Jacob muttered, panic flickering in the gaze. In a second, he ducked behind Wayan's chair, grabbing its back as if it were a shield. Wayan froze, startled. Her eyes darted down to him, crouched like a kid, hiding from trouble. Her mouth parted, but no words came. She didn't know whether to laugh or whisper. He motioned for silence, eyes pleading. She nodded before she could think twice. The boy shrieked again, this time full of glee, and charged toward their corner. He let out a quiet gasp and bolted from behind her, dodging tables and startled customers. The little warrior chased after him, laughter echoing through the cafe like sunlight. Wayan sat still for a moment, her fingers pressed lightly to her lips. Then she smiled. Not a polite smile, a real one, the kind that bloomed unexpectedly, like sunlight after rain. She had no idea who he was, but something about him lingered. The restaurant carried the quiet warmth of late afternoon, sunlight spilling through large windows and casting gold across the floor. Wayan and his sister Hayon sat opposite each other, drinks half finished, waiting for the food. Who is coming? Hayon asked casually, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. Her tone was light, but her eyes were curious. Wayan just shrugged, her fingers idly tapping her phone. No idea, she murmured, not looking up. Hayon stood. I'll go to the restroom. Be back before the food comes, or the mystery person shows up. Wayan nodded as Hayon left her bag and walked off, heels tapped against the wooden floor. Left alone, Wayan leaned back into the velvet cushion and unlocked her phone. The restaurant's soft clinking of dishes, muffled laughter, and low music surrounded like a lullaby. Her thumb scrolled aimlessly. She hadn't expected anything from today, just a quiet lunch. Suddenly, Hane's phone rang. The sound cut sharply through the soft noise. Wayan hesitated, then reached across the table and answered it. Hello, she said softly, her voice calm but slightly tired. She expected nothing out of the ordinary. Is he there yet? Her mother asked on the other end, her tone brisk and expectant. Wayan blinked, confused. Who? She replied, frowning as she sat up straighter. Your fiance, her mother added casually. He's coming to meet you. I told you to dress nicely. What? Wayan's heart skipped. Why didn't you tell me earlier? She asked, voice raising. Her mother chuckled. There's something called surprise, sweetheart. Now be polite. Talk to him gently. I hope you like him, she said before ending the call with no explanation. Wayan stared at the screen in disbelief. Her fingers trembled slightly. Just then, Hyun's phone pinged. A new message. She tapped it open. Her breath caught in her throat as her eyes landed on the photo. Her chest tightened with disbelief. It was him, Jungkook, the man from the cafe, the one who hid behind a curtain and made her laugh with nothing but a glance. Her pulse quickened. She barely had time to think, let alone react. The restaurant door opened. Jungkook stepped inside. His black shirt was pressed neatly, sleeves rolled just lightly. His eyes scanned the room. Sochin trailed beside him, skipping slightly. Wyan stood up, feeling the weight of something she couldn't name. She lifted her hand hesitantly, and Jungkook's gaze found her. Surprise flickered in his eyes, quickly replaced by warmth. He walked over with a smile. She could feel her heart in her throat. Her voice had vanished somewhere behind her lips. I didn't know it was you, Jungkook said, stopping in front of her. His voice was soft, like he meant it. My mom just told me, Wayan replied, her smile uncertain but genuine. Her fingers curled slightly at her sides. Jungkook nodded slowly, then extended his hand. I'm sorry, I'm Jungkook. His hand was warm, steady, held with quiet confidence. Wayan, she said softly, placing her hand in his. The touch made her feel grounded. The moment didn't feel real. He pulled out the chair and gestured to the boys beside him. This is my little brother, Sochin. I guess you probably haven't forgotten him. Sochin grinned up at her, eyes shining with mischief. Wayan laughed under her breath, surprised by her own ease. Of course not, she replied, still smiling. Her gaze moved between them, beautiful, strange, and utterly unexpected. Hayon returned to the table, drying her hands with the tissue. Her brows lifted slightly with her eyes met the tall stranger seated beside Wayan. This is my younger sister, Wayan said, her voice soft as she gestured toward her. Hello, Jungkook greeted with a kind smile, his eyes flicking to Hayon politely before turning back to Wayan, almost instinctively. The table felt warm again, not from the food but from something more alive. Sujan swung his legs beneath his chair. That was your cafe? Wayan asked, suddenly curious. There was a sparkle in her eyes, a light that hadn't been there when they first arrived. Yeah, it's ours. Jungkook replied. His voice was calm and hurried. Wayan nodded with a quiet smile. Her gaze drifted to Sochan, who sat upright, eyes locked on the approaching plates. His little hands clapped excitedly when the food arrived. Conversation fell away as they started to eat. Cutlery clinked softly. Between bites, Wayan and Jungkook shared quiet glances. She tried not to make it obvious, but her eyes kept wandering to him. Something about him felt wholesome, the way he smiled gently, the way he listened, the quiet strength in his eyes. He wasn't loud, he was steady, warm. She was going insane, she thought. His voice, his presence, The way he looked at her like she mattered. The meal passed in a strange blur of food and silent fluttering. Her heart knew something her mind couldn't yet put into words. Once the last spoonful was gone and napkins were folded neatly beside empty plates, they stood up. Ryan reached for her phone and hesitated. Should she ask her parents for his number or could she just ask him directly now? Before she could decide, Jungkook stepped closer, holding his phone out. Can you please feed your number here? He asked, his gaze locked onto hers. His voice was gentle, but his eyes said much more. Yes, she replied, typing without delay. He gave her a soft smile as he called her number, the ringtone chirping from her pocket. That's mine, call me any time," he said. His voice had dropped slightly, sincere. There was something about the way he looked at her. It lingered. Sure, she whispered, her voice catching in her throat. Their eyes stayed on each other a moment longer than they should have. Her fingers curled against her phone, her heart pressed against her ribs. He nodded once. Take care, he said. And just like that, he left. Wayne stood frozen, watching his retreating figure until Hayon nudged her with a knowing smile. I thought you were going to go to him. She teased, laughter in her tone. Wayne chuckled and shook her head. I met him before, she said, her voice thoughtful. Really? Hayon asked, surprised. As I stepped out of the restaurant into the golden tinted evening, Wayne told her about a cafe and the unexpected meeting and the boy who made her smile. Once Ryan and Hayon returned home, her mom was already in the living room waiting. Ryan was still smiling from earlier, cheeks soft with thoughts she hadn't yet named. Hayon, tired and yawning, sat under the couch with the stretch. Their mother immediately walked to Hayon, fussing over her hair. Ryan sat beside them, her thumb lingering near her phone screen, wondering if it was too early to text him. Should she wait? Would he text first? How is he? Their mother asked, her eyes on him. Do you agree with this marriage? Her voice was light but curious, a quiet excitement buried beneath routine concern. Hayan blinked slowly, eyes closed. Who am I to agree she's the one smiling? Their mother frowned. Yeah, you should say if you like him or not, she said, nudging her daughter gently on the shoulder. Hayan chuckled, still too tired to lift her head. I mean, yeah, he's fine. If Wayan wants to marry him, why not? That was when her mother tugged at her arm, a bit more serious now. You're marrying him, not Wyatt. The words landed heavily in the room. Wyatt looked up from her phone, her fingers frozen, her eyes confused and suddenly wide. What? Wyatt asked. Her voice was quiet but urgent. You said he's my fiance, she added, eyes strained on her mother's face. Her chest tightened somewhere in her throat. Her voice cracked. She didn't move, didn't blink, just waited for the answer. Their father joined them, sensing the shift in the air. What's going on? He asked. Their mother looked between the two girls, already exasperated. I called Hayon and told her he was coming. What's the confusion here? I took the call, Ryan said. Her voice was small now, distant. You were calling her non-stop. She was in the restroom and I picked it up. She swallowed thickly. Don't you know my voice, Mom? Her hand clutched around the cushion. Their mother narrowed her eyes. You shouldn't have picked up her phone. Her voice was sharp now, disappointed. And for the record, Jungkook is Haeun's fiance. That was already decided. Ryan's face drained of color. The name, the boy, the feelings, none of it was hers. What are you saying? Haeun sat up, eyes finally awake. No way, Mom. No one told me anything. Her mother waved her hand. His parents saw Haeun's picture and agreed. I don't know how he confused. He must have never seen the picture. Everything was spinning. Ryan felt the room grow smaller. Her chest tightened again, this time painfully. Her lips trembled, but she didn't let anything fall. If Hayan is okay, then proceed, she whispered, turning away. And before any could say a word, she left. When Wayan stepped off the last bus and walked toward her room, her steps slowed. Her breath caught at the sight of a sleek car parked just outside. Her heart thudded against her ribs as she swallowed hard and walked inside. The living room buzzed with quiet tension. Her parents were seated side by side, and Hayon turned quietly, her face glowing. She reached Wayan, pinching her cheek softly, confusing her more. Wayan couldn't understand what was happening. She just moved toward her room. Her fingers tightened around the strap of her bag as she opened the door. Her heart skipped a beat. Jungkook was sitting there on her bed. His head was low, but he looked up at her, calm and unreadable. "You can't run away now," he said gently. His voice wasn't teasing, it was grounding. Real. Maya stepped in slowly, eyes still on him. Her bag slid from her shoulder to the floor. He stood and walked toward her, both hands still inside his pockets. She took a small step back, confused but still watching. Then he reached out, pulling a small device from his pocket. Her phone. "Here, I fixed your phone," he said. She took it with her hand, blinking up at him. "Thank you," she whispered. Then her brows furrowed softly. "But this is my room. Hyun's room is on the left," she said, voice barely audible. But Jungkook stepped closer and interrupted her. "I need Wayan, no one else," he said. His eyes were clear. She blinked again, unable to tell if she was still dreaming. She opened her mouth to speak again, but he cut her off, firmer this time. "I told your parents I need you." Wayan's lips parted. "Your parents," she stuttered, but again his voice came first. "I told my parents I'm either marrying Wayan or staying single forever," he said. He came closer and her back met the wall. Her breath hitched in her throat. "Really?" she asked, her voice barely there. She didn't know what to believe. No one ever chose her like this. But his hand found her waist gently and the other rested behind her on the wall. His touch was soft, protective, sure. "I need two baby girls just like you," Jungkook murmured, his voice filled with affection. Her lips finally curved upward. A chuckle escaped her. Her eyes, once unsure, began to warm. "What about a boy?" she asked, the first trace of playfulness returning. Just then, Sochan darted out from under the bed, causing Wayan to flinch in surprise. Jungkook jumped. Jungkook shouted as Sochan bit his leg sharply before bolting out the door. Jungkook cursed under his breath. "This is exactly why I don't want boys. He's enough," Jungkook muttered with the winds. Wayan burst out laughing, covering her mouth with her hand. Her shoulders relaxed. The room, once tight with emotion, now felt light and real and tender. Jungkook's eyes found her again, and slowly he stepped more closer. He leaned in and pressed soft kiss to her cheek. Wayan's eyes fluttered to close. His lips were warm. Then he moved up, pressing another kiss to her forehead.